mostly it has a huge correlation, but there are periods where M1 and M2 they can actually move in different direction, as the figure shows. For example, in 1985-86, uh, we see there's a rise in M1, but there's a reduction in M2. Similar, but from 2000 again, this is a rise of M2, reduction in M1. This happens because there's components of M1 and M2 are different. So M2 is basically M1 plus all these other components. When all these other components rises, given M1 for different kind of policy measures of the government, and they move in opposite direction, M2 can move in opposite direction, but generally they have a correlation, and we will generally discuss or concentrate when we call money supply. Universally, they actually mean M1, the most liquid measure M1. So we are going to check that how M1 is actually calculated, and central government controls M1. This is basically what we're going to check in the next couple of lectures. Okay. Uh, to do so, we are going to show you the balance sheet of a typical commercial bank and the typical central bank and how they are interrelated. Understanding this is crucial because the control of money supply ultimately comes in through these changes in the composition of the balance sheet of the central bank and the commercial bank. So that's basically a simplest possible balance sheet. There are other components also. We'll go to add that later, different other components accordingly. But that's the simple possible balance sheet of commercial bank and central bank. For a typical commercial bank, the liability side deposits D that constitute the main part. On the asset side, we're going to have reserves, bonds, loans. Deposit comes to the liability side. Can anybody tell me that why deposit appears in the liability side of the commercial bank?
So we have to pay interest.
You have to pay interest. Very good. And for the same reason, loans and bonds in the asset side, because they earn interest out of that. Now, interestingly, the the the, the relation, and this is basically a typical central bank balance sheet. For the liability side, you have these reserves and the currency in circulation in the economy. The asset side is foreign exchange reserves, bond, central bank can purchase bond, loans, central bank can give loans. Generally, central bank gives loan to these commercial banks, and gold reserves. It is called balance sheet because asset and liability side should be equal. For the commercial bank, asset should be equal to liability, and for the central bank, also asset should be equal to liability. And the interrelationship between this balance sheet between this commercial bank and the central bank is basically through reserves. That means you deposit some money. We're going to see a fraction of this deposit the commercial bank keep as reserves, where each commercial bank they have an account in the central bank, so they keep it over there. So reserves appear in the asset side of the commercial bank, but that same reserves appears in the liability side of the central bank, because whenever a commercial bank asks their reserve back, the central bank has to give it back. So that is why in the liability side, and that's basically the relation between them. Reserves, the reserves that appears in the asset side in the commercial bank, The same reserves appears in the liability side in the commercial bank. And when you add the liability side of the commercial bank, currency in circulation C plus reserves R, what we got the high powered money or the monetary base, same thing, identical, different name. Currency plus reserves equals to high powered money or monetary base, and which is denoted by H for here. Okay, fine. So I think what I will request you people, take a few minutes, let's say, and write down this balance sheet to your exercise book, so that when I go to other slides, it still remains in front of your eyes. Take a couple of minutes, uh, write down the balance sheet of the commercial bank and the central bank as displayed in the screen. Write it down in your exercise book. Couple of minutes. Again, why we are learning it, we will see the control of money supply, which is basically one of the monetary policy. Basically, I'm going to increase money supply. Central bank decides that decrease money supply. How central bank does that, and how does the composition of the balance sheet of the commercial bank and central bank changes due to that? We want to learn that in detail, and that is why we are doing it.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, can you explain once more why reserves are in under liability in central banks?
because these reserves that you appear over here in the asset side of commercial bank keeps these reserves for a purpose. I'm going to explain that why. Uh, where do they keep their reserves? Each commercial bank, they have an account in the central bank, and they keep it over there. That means when the commercial bank asks their reserve back from the central bank, they have to give it to back to the commercial banks. That is why it appears in the liability side of the central bank.
Okay, sir, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please write it down. Just a second, I'm coming. Written down, hopefully, everybody.
Sir, why currency in circulation is liability for central banks?
तुम बोलो खुद. तुम बोलो. Use your brain and tell me. Can anybody help him out to explain that why currency in circulation in the liability side of the commercial of the central bank?
Sir, because if let's suppose a commercial bank goes back to the central bank to return the money, that is the currency in circulation, then they'll have to have some asset accountable for that money.
But the commercial bank does not have any currency in circulation.
No, sir, like if it goes to the central bank with any amount of currency.
कौन देगा ये? करेंसी इन सर्कुलेशन किसके बैलेंस शीट में है बोलो तो? I have not written that balance sheet of that particular thing over here. There's another agent in the economy. They have also have a balance sheet. किसके बैलेंस शीट में है? Currency in circulation. Normal human being, they have an asset side deposit and currency in circulation. The corresponding liability side of the deposit is in the commercial bank, and the corresponding liability side of the same currency circulation is in the central bank. So currency in circulation is in your pocket, and that is your asset. And whose liability is that? Somebody who has given it to you. Just like somebody issued a bond. Somebody issued a bond and you purchase it. It is your asset, and somebody who issued it, that is her liability. Currency in circulation is issued by the central bank, and it is held by you as a normal human being. So it is your asset and central bank's liability. Clear, Lakshya?
Yes, sir.
So anybody who issued something, they have an asset side, they have a liability side. Just like the bond. Let's say a farm who's going to hire labor. पैसा कहाँ से आएगा? Issued a bond at the liability side of the farm. And the person who purchased it, let's say, and that is the asset side. Fine? Very good. Hopefully you guys have written it down. So let me go to the other slide. As I said, money supply M, which is basically M1, currency plus deposit. This is how the money supply is defined universally. Currency in circulation plus deposit, C plus D. And monetary base or high powered money, the way we have defined over here, currency plus reserves. And the reserves has two parts: required reserves, excess reserves. And this is basically what we need to learn over here. There's a stipulation from the government, the commercial bank, the central bank rule that a commercial bank has to follow, that the commercial bank has to maintain a reserves deposit ratio. Small RR equals to capital RR divided by D. Small RR is a fraction. This is central bank. This is the control of the central bank. Central bank decides that how much fraction of deposit a commercial bank has to keep as reserves. This is denoted by RR over here. Required reserves to deposit ratio. That is central bank, controlled by the central bank. Excess reserves to deposit ratio is basically the discretion of the commercial bank. So whatever be the stipulation as reserves, I want to keep something more for my own purpose. And there's a currency deposit ratio, C by D. This is basically completely your choice. If you have some amount of money in your pocket, you decide how much to keep it in terms of currency and how much to deposit to a bank. So RR divided by D, required reserves to deposit ratio, it is given by the central bank and the commercial bank has to follow that. ER divided by D, it is excess reserves to deposit ratio. This is the discretion of the commercial bank. And CR, capital C divided by D, or currency deposit ratio, which is denoted by CR, this is your discretion as an household. You have a money, you have some amount of money, how much to keep as currency in your pocket or how much to deposit to commercial bank, your choice. Fine. So I have a definition of M, I have a definition of H. So M divided by H is C plus D divided by C plus RR plus ER. M divided by H equals to C plus D divided by C plus RR plus ER. लिख लो in your exercise book. M divided by H equals to C plus D divided by C plus RR plus ER. Now divide both numerator and the denominator by D and use these definitions. Okay, let me do it. H equals to C plus required reserves plus excess reserves. Then M divided by H equals to E plus D divided by C plus RR plus ER. Now if I divide both numerator and denominator by D, what I get by D plus 1, and I get नीचे by D plus excess reserves by D, sorry, let me follow the rule, required reserves by D plus excess reserves by D equals to, and if I follow the definition that we have defined, currency deposit ratio denoted by what? CR, required reserves to deposit ratio denoted by RR, and excess reserves to deposit ratio denoted by ER. What I get is this. CR 1 divided by CR RR plus ER. फाइन, डेरिवेशन ठीक है. Adarsh?
Yes, sir.
Faisal?
Yes, sir, it's
Fine.
fine.
Very good. So this is exactly what I have written over here. So let me go back to my slide again. So this is exactly you see the way I have written over here. M by H is that thing, the bracket. Then capital M equals to the term in the bracket multiplied by capital H. The term in the bracket is mu, which is known as money multiplier. And these are all fractions. And it can be shown that mu is greater than 1. That means if you increase high powered money by 1 unit, the, the money supply in the economy increased by mu unit. This is exactly what this equation number 1 says. That means if you increase reserves by 1 unit or you increase currency in circulation by 1 unit, the high powered money rises by 1 unit. To what extent the money supply in the economy rises, this particular equation says the money supply in the economy rises by mu unit. Mu can be controlled by the central bank, by the commercial bank, and by the household. How? Mu depends on currency to deposit ratio, which is controlled by the household. Mu depends on required reserve ratio, which is controlled by the central bank. And mu depends on excess reserves to deposit ratio, which is controlled by the commercial bank. So the money supply not only gets controlled by the central bank, but it also gets controlled by money supply for what is going on. Dev Agarwal is leaving. Oh. Money supply is not only gets controlled by the central bank, but it also gets controlled by the household and also by commercial bank through CR and ER. That's money multiplier, and the value of the money multiplier greater than 1. So a unit rise in high powered money gives more than 1 unit rise in the money supply. This is exactly what this equation says. The high powered money is controlled by the central bank through currency in circulation and through reserves. Any question? Is it fine? Harsh? It's fine, right?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Oh,
Sir Priyansha.
bolo.
Sir, this small RR that you like, is that the is that at the discretion of the central bank, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Central bank controls
But
that.
that is not their asset. Like central bank can control that, but it is not
Central
their
bank, no,
asset.
no, it is not their asset. And you do not need to be that asset. It basically simply says that commercial bank, if you want to, if suppose RR is 50%, it basically says commercial bank, if you have 100 unit of deposit, you have to keep 50 unit in reserves. You have to follow that rule. It's a rule set
Yes,
by
sir, got it.
set by the central bank, and the commercial bank has to follow if they want to do business.
Yes, sir, got it. Thank you.
Got it. Very good.
Sir, I had one question.
बोलो.
Sir, in macroeconomics, like we studied that money supply is equal to the sum of the three different types of money demand, that is transactionary, precautionary, and speculative.
Yes.
So, is it the same approach that we are looking for here also, or is it a different money supply that we are talking about?
That is not money supply. You are talking about money demand. Money demand has three different components: precautionary demand, transaction demand, and speculative demand. What they
Yes.
assume in the macroeconomics, what you have assumed, whatever is demanded, it's supplied. Your money supply thing you have not studied till now. It's the supply side of the money.
So that means the like in macroeconomics we used to consider the sum of those three demands equal to the money supply.
Money
So
demand. Some of those three demands are money demand, and you have still now you have assumed money demand equals to money supply. Whatever is demanded, it's supplied. You have not studied money supplied specifically. This is the first time you are actually studying money supply, how they control money supply.
okay, so
Getting
so
my
the
point?
assumption does not hold true here.
अभी तक मनी डिमांड के बारे में मैं कुछ बोला हूं? Have I taught money demand over here till now?
No, sir.
No. Have you guys have been taught money supply before this? No. You have studied only money demand and you have assumed money demand equals to money supply. And central bank increase money supply, LM curve shifts. Central bank decrease money supply, LM curve shifts. Money supply will be equals to money demand. No doubt about it. But we are studying this money supply thing more in detail just to see that how that assumption that money supply rising, money supply falling, वो कहां से आता है. इसके बाद मैं मनी डिमांड पढ़ाऊंगा और मनी सप्लाई मनी डिमांड में इक्वेट करूंगा. जो तुम पढ़े हो मैक्रो में वो आएगा. But in macro, you have not still studied money supply. You assume money supply equals to money demand, but you have no idea where the money supply is coming from. What kind of parameter a central bank controls to bring money supply equals to money demand? वो भी तुम नहीं पढ़े हो, because you do not know what parameter central bank and commercial bank has. वो हम लोग अभी पढ़ रहे हैं. इसके बाद इक्वेट मानी डिमांड आएगा, उसके बाद इक्वेट भी करेंगे.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है, तो इसको ठीक से समझ लो. जो तुम पढ़े हो वहां पे मनी डिमांड पढ़े हो. So sum of the money demand, transaction demand, precautionary demand, speculative demand, if you add them together, you get total money demand. And what you have assumed till now, there is somebody in the economy that they gives you whatever you demand in term and as money, they give you that. This is exactly, but who's that? Central bank. उसको वो मनी सप्लाई कहां से आता है पता नहीं, वो अभी पढ़ रहे हैं. ठीक है औद्रिजा.
Yes, sir.
छाछी जलोटे.
Yes, sir.
समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
यस सर, वेरी गुड वेरी गुड. तो ये डेरिवेशन ठीक ठाक है.
Yes, sir.
ओके, तो इसको देखा जाए. दिस इज द एक्सपेरिमेंट. औद्रिजा देखो, यहां से तुम्हें थोड़ा सा आएगा समझ में
Yes,
हम लोग
sir.
क्या कर रहे हैं. द एक्सपेरिमेंट दैट यू आर डूइंग in this slide and the next couple of slide. Suppose commercial bank for any particular time period gets an extra deposit delta D positive. ठीक है. Commercial bank, they have initially, suppose they have a deposit capital D. Now they have D plus delta D. This extra delta D deposit they get from the household and it is deposited to their liability side. So now the total deposit is D plus delta D. what they do, they keep RR plus ER multiplied by delta D in reserves, and suppose 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D, they keep it as loan. ठीक है, प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. From the household, a particular commercial bank, they get extra delta D unit of deposit. Initially they have deposit, let's say D, now they have a deposit D plus delta D. Out of this extra delta D amount of deposit, they keep RR plus ER multiplied by delta D unit in reserves. Asset में चला गया. बाकी 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D loan में चला गया. Suppose. Clear, Odrija? Problem नहीं है?
Yes, sir, clear.
ठीक है. Everybody लिखते रहो. I am not writing it in my Word document. यहाँ पे है, but लिखते रहो. Now next step what happened? ये जो लोन गया है ना, suppose this entire loan deposited back to the commercial bank again. So this 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D unit of loan, that is deposited to another commercial bank, let's say, or maybe the same commercial bank, let's say. एक ही commercial bank के deposit side में आ गया. Next second step में क्या होगा? It kept RR plus ER multiplied by 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D in reserves. Baki 1 minus RR minus ER whole square multiplied by delta D is given as loan. And this process continues. Delta D unit आया deposit में, reserves कितना रखा in terms of required reserves and excess reserves. RR plus ER multiplied by delta D as reserves. 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D goes as loan. Entire loan जो मिला जिसको, suppose वो पूरा फिर से deposit कर दिया उसी बैंक में, maybe in the same bank or in another commercial bank. What will happen? Now the extra deposit you get, that extra new deposit you get is basically 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D. क्या हुआ? उसका RR plus ER fraction reserves में रह गया, and rest, which is 1 minus RR minus ER whole square multiplied by delta D, loan में चला गया. And the process continues. That means ये वाला जो लोन मिला, वो लोन फिर से suppose deposit हो गया commercial bank में. So the new deposit the commercial bank gets at the third step is 1 minus RR minus ER whole square multiplied by delta D. क्या हुआ? ये जो नया डिपॉजिट आया 1 minus RR minus ER whole square multiplied by delta D, उसका RR plus ER fraction reserves रहा, and rest 1 minus RR minus ER whole cube multiplied by delta D loan में चला गया. And the process continues. If we continue this process, the two things that comes is basically total reserves which is increased due to this new increase of deposit is delta D. That means initially जो delta D amount deposited हुआ था, in the entire economy the same amount reserves increase होगा, which is basically what I did. I have added these reserves RR plus ER multiplied by delta D, then RR plus ER into 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D plus RR plus ER 1 minus RR minus ER whole square multiplied by delta D. तुम देखो, have added all the reserves. In each and every step, new reserves are getting created. I've added all the reserves together. And if it continues, what I see, initial जो deposit increase हुआ था, पूरा इकोनॉमी में उतना अमाउंट का रिजर्व्स इंक्रीज होगा. द टोटल अमाउंट ऑफ रिजर्व्स दैट गोइंग टू इंक्रीज इन द एंटायर इकोनॉमी is exactly equals to the initial rise in the deposit. And what is the total increase in deposit? If I add all the loans together, 1 minus RR minus ER multiplied by delta D, loan 1, 1 minus RR minus ER whole square multiplied by delta D, loan 2, 1 minus RR minus ER whole cube multiplied by delta D, loan 3. If I add them together, and I have assumed that all the loans are getting deposited over there, the total deposit that increase in the economy is delta D divided by RR plus ER, which is exactly equals to delta R divided by RR plus ER. Since RR plus ER is a fraction, the total rise of deposit in the economy is basically greater than the initial rise in the deposit in the economy. Capital D is strictly greater than delta D. इसका यूटिलिटी बाद में समझ में आएगा. देखो, ठीक से देखो और समझो. This is how our objective is to actually check money supply कहां से आता है, how the money gets created. Any question is derivation में? Now you see ये डेल्टा R जो इंक्रीज हुआ है, if I go over here, delta R is going to raise delta H, and that delta H जो इंक्रीज यहाँ पे होगा वो मनी सप्लाई को इंक्रीज करेगा. देखो, extra deposit. The only thing, if I want to check how much money supply is created, how much extra money is created, we have this formula that money supply equals to money multiplier multiplied by high powered money, and high powered money is currency in circulation plus reserves. ये जो deposit created हुआ, delta D unit of initial deposit creates delta R units of total reserves in the economy. Then delta H is exactly equals to delta R, and delta M equals to money multiplier multiplied by delta H. So total money supply created equals to delta M, which is mu multiplied by this delta R. That's the extra money supply. So थोड़ा सा deposit increase हुआ, money supply भी increase हुआ high powered money के through. समझ में आ रहा है? नवोनील?
यस सर.
समझ में आ रहा है?
हाँ सर.
अच्छा एक काम करो तो, suppose you assume, just for the simplicity, CR equals to 0. That means no currency deposit to ratio, and ER is also 0. Excess reserves to deposit ratio is also 0. ठीक है? And assume that small RR, required reserves to deposit ratio, is 0.5.
Okay.
ठीक है? Now suppose delta D equals to 100. That means 100 rupee extra deposit हुआ इकोनॉमी में, किसी कॉमर्शियल बैंक में 100 रुपीज एक्स्ट्रा डिपॉजिट हुआ, तो पूरा इकोनॉमी में रिजर्व्स कितना इंक्रीज किया?
डेल्टा डी करेगा सर.
डेल्टा डी करेगा. दैट मींस टोटल 100 यूनिट एक्स्ट्रा रिजर्व्स क्रिएटेड होगा.
हाँ.
वेरी गुड. टोटल डिपॉजिट कितना इंक्रीज हुआ इन द इकोनॉमी?
200 हो जाएगा टोटल.
200 हो जाएगा टोटल, राइट? हाउ डिड यू कैलकुलेट? डेल्टा आर डिवाइडेड बाय आरआर, राइट?
Yes sir. Delta D divided by R.
Delta D divided by RR, which is over here exactly equals to delta R divided by RR, right? ओके, मनी सप्लाई कितना इंक्रीज हुआ?
So म्यू से पता चलेगा ना?
हाँ, हाई पावर्ड मनी से देखो तो
Okay.
mu will be over here 1 over RR only because CR is assumed to be 0, ER is assumed to be 0. So delta M has to be equals to delta H divided by RR, right?
Hmm.
Delta H is exactly equals to delta R because H equals to C plus R. C is 0 over here. There is no currency deposit to ratio. So H equals to R.
Hmm.
Delta H equals to delta R, which is 100.
100, yeah. 200.
200. So delta M is 200. In this example, delta deposit जितना increase किया वो भी 200 because M equals to C plus D.
Hmm.
Delta M equals to delta D जितना increase हुआ total deposit. समझ में आ रहा है?
हाँ
तो
सर.
deposit हुआ 100 rupees, money supply increase हो गया 200 rupees. ये वाला जो प्रोसेस तुम देख रहे हो, डेल्टा डी इनिशियल डिपॉजिट हुआ, देन इट कीप ऑन इंक्रीजिंग. ये डिपॉजिट क्रिएट हुआ, डेल्टा डी से रिजर्व्स गया, लोन से फिर डिपॉजिट हुआ, वहां से फिर रिजर्व्स गया, लोन गया, एंड द कंटिन्यूज. This process is called multiple deposit creation. That the technical name of this process is multiple deposit creation, and that creates money. So money gets created through multiple deposit creation. ये एग्जाम्पल हम लोग और भी डिटेल में देखेंगे एंड वी विल सी हाउ द कंपोजिशन ऑफ द बैलेंस शीट चेंजेस आउट ऑफ दैट. वी विल सी मोर इन डिटेल. बट ये वाला अभी तक कोई क्वेश्चन है? प्रियांशा?
Sir, I understood the mathematics, but I didn't get the intuition. How is the deposit of entire banking system increasing by a value which is greater than delta D?
इंट्यूशन क्लियर नहीं हुआ?
Yes, sir.
एक बार क्लियर करने की कोशिश करते हैं, अदरवाइज वी विल मूव फॉरवर्ड. इट विल बी क्रिएटेड लेटर व्हेन वी विल डू सम न्यूमेरिकल एक्सरसाइज. देखो, सब कुछ भूल जाओ, ये वाला कैलकुलेशन. इनिशियली अगर डेल्टा डी डिपॉजिट होता है किसी कमर्शियल बैंक में, that is a stipulation to the commercial bank from the central bank. You have to keep some amount of the deposit at reserves, right? That's the rule you have to follow.
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, तो that means जो एग्जाम्पल हम लोगों ने दिया है, अगर 100 रुपीज एक्स्ट्रा डिपॉजिट होता है किसी कमर्शियल बैंक में, देन कितना रिजर्व्स क्रिएटेड होता है?
50.
50. डेल्टा डी इज 100. डेल्टा डी इज 100. रिजर्व्स कितना क्रिएटेड होता है? एक्स्ट्रा
Okay,
रिजर्व्स
100.
100. कितना हाई पावर्ड मनी इंक्रीज करता है? H equals to C plus R. That's the formula. High powered money is defined as currency in circulation plus reserves. H equals to C plus R.
Yes, sir. It will increase by 100.
Delta H equals to delta R. It increases by 100. Now you go to this formula. Money supply कितना increase करता है? 100 divided by RR, which is equals to 100 divided by 0.5, which is 200. And that's the intuition. मनी, एक चीज दिमाग में रखना, मनी सप्लाई चेंज करने के लिए either the money multiplier has to change or the high powered money has to change or both. Multiplier change करेगा RR से, ER से, CR से. If there is a change in required reserve ratio, if there is a change in excess reserves to deposit ratio, if there is change in currency to deposit ratio, change karega. Money supply will also change. Or if the high powered money changes, currency in circulation changes, reserves changes, money supply will also change. So any kind of transaction in the banking system that changes either capital H or mu, money multiplier, I'm going to see a change in the money supply through that. And that's the intuition. ये वाला तो calculation है कि कितना change करेगा. Intuition is any kind of transaction in the banking system that changes either high powered money or the money multiplier mu or both, they will change money supply. And that this calculation will say how much, the quantity. Clear, Priyangsha? Intuition?
Yes, sir. Got it.
That's the intuition. Akshat Sharma,
Yes, sir.
समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. और भी समझ में आएगा when we will actually see the different kind of policy measures central bank take to control money supply, जो हम लोगों का next slide में आता है. Tools
Yes,
to
sir.
control money supply. How many tools? Open market operation, OMO, required reserves rate, RR. So central bank can control that. So when RR changes, mu changes, and the money supply changes, open market operation हम लोग देखेंगे how it affects money supply. And there's a discount rate or discount window. Is basically the repo rate in our case. That this is the rate at which commercial bank can actually borrow money from the central bank, and they have impact on money supply. These are basically three different tools central bank of all the countries use to control money supply. Open market operation, required reserves changing RR changes, mu changes, money supply changes, and discount rate, which is known as this discount rate is the name of in US. It is repo rate over here. It is the rate at which commercial bank borrow money from the central bank. ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन तुम लोग सुने हो ना मैक्रो में?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sachi, open market operation, are you aware of that, this term?
Sir, I think I only have read it, but like I don't recall it. It has been like 1 year.
1 year? तुम तो बोल रहे हो 10 साल हो गया है.
One semester.
One semester. तुम तो जैसे बोल रहे हो कि कुछ 10-12 सेमिस्टर हो गया है. Anyway, ठीक है, देखते हैं. Maybe you will start recalling from here this open market operation. Okay. So open market operation से start करते हैं. This is basically, if you go to the balance sheet of the commercial bank and central bank, there's a bond over here, right, in the balance sheet of central bank. Suppose central bank purchase some bond from the commercial bank. Central bank purchase some bond from the commercial bank. What is its impact on the money supply? This is open market operation. Or central bank sell some bond to commercial bank. What is its impact on the money supply? That is open market operation. So we will see that through selling and purchasing bond, central bank can control money supply. They can raise money supply or they can decrease money supply, and that is open market operation. And we will see that in detail how the composition of the balance sheet changes if that takes place. Okay, fine. धीरे धीरे देखते हैं. सेंट्रल बैंक का बैलेंस शीट पकड़ो. साची.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Suppose central bank purchase 100 unit of extra bond from the commercial bank. ठीक है? So there will be a plus 100 here in the asset side, right? Sachi,
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm listening. Yes, sir.
you're listening, right? तो यहाँ पे सेंट्रल बैंक के एसेट साइड के बॉन्ड का जो कंपोनेंट है वहां पे प्लस 100 हो जाएगा और कमर्शियल बैंक के एसेट साइड में जो बॉन्ड है वहां पे माइनस 100 हो जाएगा.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Okay. Balance sheet implies that the asset side of a bank has to be equal to liability side of the bank. So central bank के balance sheet में asset side में जो plus 100 bond component में हुआ, the same component will be reflected over here plus 100 in the reserves component. पहले लिख लो वहां पे, so that the asset equals to liability वो central bank में maintain हो जाए. So bond plus 100 in the asset side of the central bank, liability side of the central bank are plus 100. Asset equals to liability in the central bank. ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you have this R plus 100 over here in the liability side of the central bank, the same R plus 100 will be reflected in the asset side of the commercial bank. So central bank के asset side में bond plus 100, central bank के liability side में reserves plus 100. ये जो reserves plus 100 आया है central bank के liability side में, वो किसका asset है? Commercial bank का. Reserves plus 100 in the asset side of the commercial bank. तो कमर्शियल बैंक पे बॉन्ड माइनस 100 है, यहाँ पे रिजर्व्स प्लस 100 है. ठीक है साची?
Yes, sir.
ओके. लाइबिलिटी साइड को चेंज करेगा कमर्शियल बैंक का?
No, sir.
ठीक से बोलो. रिजर्व चेंज
No,
किया,
sir.
रिजर्व चेंज किया, डिपॉजिट नहीं चेंज करेगा. There is the reserves to deposit ratio you have to maintain.
Oh, yes, sir. Oh.
How much deposit is going to change? यहाँ पे जाओ, ये वाला जो हमने डिराइव किया है, यहाँ पे जाओ. कितना डिपॉजिट इंक्रीज करेगा?
100.
आरआर को भूल रहा मैं आरआर 0.5 बोला हूं तुम्हें. कितना
नहीं.
इंक्रीज करेगा? There is a delta R 100. How much deposit is going to create? 100 divided by RR plus ER.
So the
That's the extra deposit.
yeah.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
that's the extra deposit. तो अगर ये हुआ, कमर्शियल बैंक का बैलेंस शीट मेंटेन हुआ?
नहीं सर, नहीं हुआ, बट करना पड़ेगा मेंटेन.
करना पड़ेगा. कहां से आएगा? लोन इंक्रीज कर जाएगा.
अच्छा. ओके.
मेंटेन. तो एग्जांपल लेते हैं, न्यूमेरिकल एग्जांपल लेते हैं. CR equals to 0, ER equals to 0 for simplicity, RR equals to 0.5.
Okay.
बॉन्ड सेंट्रल बैंक के बैलेंस शीट में एसेट साइड प्लस 100, लाइबिलिटी साइड प्लस 100. नो प्रॉब्लम, बैलेंस हो गया.
हाँ.
ये जो लाइबिलिटी टाइप रिजर्व्स में प्लस 100 हुआ, दैट गेट्स रिफ्लेक्टेड इन द कमर्शियल बैंक्स एसेट साइड, रिजर्व्स प्लस 100. राइट?
Yes, sir.
डिपॉजिट कितना इंक्रीज करेगा? 100 डिवाइडेड बाय 0.5,
हाँ.
200. ठीक है, ठीक है. तो यहाँ पे 200 है, यहाँ पे प्लस 100 है, यहाँ पे माइनस 100 है. लोन कितना जाएगा?
200, 200.
डिपॉजिट 200 है, रिजर्व प्लस 100, bond minus 100, they cancel out each other, loan will be exactly 200, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. If that happens, money supply कितना increase किया? Simple formula से चले जाओ, दो way you can calculate. One is M equals to C plus D, that is my money supply, C is 0. So delta M is exactly equals to delta D. How much is my delta D? Extra deposit created 200, so money supply rises by 200.
Yes, sir.
Or you can also calculate it from the high powered money. High powered money increases by 100 unit. Money multiplier multiplied by high powered money. Money multiplier in this simple case is 1 over RR. So 100 divided by RR is again 200.
Yes,
So
sir.
when central bank purchase bond from the commercial bank, that increases money supply in the economy. This is called open market operation. Similarly, if central bank sells bond to the commercial bank, the money supply will decrease. This is also known as open market operation. So this is one tool central bank continuously use each and every day. Central bank does this each and every day to control money supply. They intervene in the bond market and they sell or purchase bonds through open market operation to control money supply. So this is the most frequently used tool by all the central bank in the world, open market operation. When central bank purchase bond, money supply rises. Simply, how do you check? If central bank purchase bond, asset rises, liability has to rise. Liability means high powered money has to rise. High powered money rises means money supply rises. So when central bank purchase bond, money supply rises. When the central bank sells bond, money supply falls. Because when central bank sells bond, in the asset side of the central bank, bond holding fall down. Similarly, in the reserve side of the central bank, reserves fall down. That means high powered money falls down. And we know money supply equals to money multiplier multiplied by high powered money. So when high powered money falls down, money supply falls down. So central bank, this is open market operation. Central bank either purchase bond or sell bond to control money supply. And this is known as open market operation in the literature. And this is most widely used monetary policy tool central bank throughout the world use to control money supply. And this takes place each and every day. Clear? Abhidip?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ, ये जो न्यूमेरिकल एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ, तुम लोग कर रहे हो ना अपने एक्सरसाइज
Yes.
बुक में? हाँ अभिदीप?
Yes, sir.
प्रियांशा?
Yes, sir.
एग्जांपल क्लियर हुआ?
Yes, sir.
Are you guys doing it in your
Sir,
exercise book? हाँ बोलो बोलो, somebody. कौन?
Sir,
Who are you?
commercial bank asset में reserves 100 increase
Who
किया.
are you? Who are you?
अभिदीप
हाँ बोलो. हाँ
Sir, अभी
commercial bank.
example में
हाँ, सेंट्रल बैंक के बॉन्ड साइड में
कमर्शियल
100 हुआ
बैंक के
एक्स्ट्रा, लाइबिलिटी में हुआ 100
यस
एक्स्ट्रा रिजर्व्स, यहाँ पे जो रिजर्व्स 100
यस
एक्स्ट्रा हुआ, सिमिलरली डिपॉजिट क्रिएटेड हुआ।
सर, ये डिपॉजिट के लिए
हाँ,
अगर अ, सर ये हमेशा ही मतलब आरआर जो है वो मेंटेन करना है मिनिमम।
you have to maintain that minimum. Yeah.
यस सर, सो इफ रिजर्व इंक्रीज,
Hmm.
okay sir, still there will be positive. Yes sir, okay, sorry, got it. I thought there would be, in one case there would be already a minimum required will be there, so there shouldn't be any change in deposit,
No,
but
there will be change. Whenever your
yes sir.
deposit changes or reserves changes according to reserve to deposit ratio, you have to maintain to be in the business. And this is exactly what I have explained over here. That suppose commercial bank से वो purchase किया, क्या होगा? यहाँ पे बोला हुआ है. And we have seen it from numerical example. And this is basically from the public. That central bank can actually purchase bond from the public also. Generally, they do not do that. But public से भी हो सकता है, because public also has a balance sheet, right? पब्लिक के पास भी बॉन्ड होता है, पब्लिक के पास भी डिपॉजिट होता है. ये जो डिपॉजिट जो लायबिलिटी साइड में तुम देख रहे हो कमर्शियल बैंक का, दैट इज बेसिकली द एसेट साइड ऑफ जनरल पब्लिक. So when bond holding of the central bank rises, again the asset rises, there should be corresponding rise in liability, currency in circulation rises, money supply rises, and that happens. Okay. So ultimately the key point is, जो बार बार मैं बोल रहा हूं, अगर हाई पावर्ड मनी चेंज करे, money supply change karega. Any kind of transaction in the economy that changes high powered money, either through money multiplier or through reserves or currency circulation, the money supply is going to change. So this open market operation is one example of transaction in the economy that changes high powered money by creating extra reserves. And extra reserves created, high powered money extra created, extra money supply created. So if central bank want to increase money supply in the economy, central bank is going to purchase bond. And if central bank wants to decrease money supply in the economy, central bank has to sell bond. So when central bank sell bond, this bond falls down, reserves falls down, high powered money falls down, money supply falls down. Central bank purchase bond, bond rises, reserves rises, high powered money rises, and from this formula, money supply rises.
Sir, in that slide, asset liability slide, can you go into that slide? Sir, sir, yes sir. So sir, the deposit is the money deposited into the commercial bank, right? So sir, how can it change? Like commercial bank cannot change that value.
No.
So sir, how are we changing it? Like
Through
it is
loan,
not in the hands of commercial
through
bank.
loan, extra deposits is getting created. Through loan, ये वाला जो तुम देख रहे हो, यहाँ पे जो मैं किया हूँ, एक्स्ट्रा डिपॉजिट ये कहाँ से आ रहा है? ये वाला जो डिपॉजिट जो एक्स्ट्रा क्रिएटेड हुआ, कहाँ से हुआ? ये वाला जो एक्स्ट्रा लोन आ रहा है ना, you get your loan, you deposit to another commercial bank. That commercial bank gets extra deposit, extra reserves created, extra high pot money created, extra money supply created. ये लोन जो है, each time you are providing loan and it is going to the banking system, it is creating money because it's creating reserves and it is creating high powered money. And this is exactly, so that is why we ask this question, that अगर 100 यूनिट का एक्स्ट्रा डिपॉजिट क्रिएटेड हुआ, कितना एक्स्ट्रा रिजर्व्स क्रिएटेड होगा इन द एंटायर इकोनॉमी? सेम. कितना एक्स्ट्रा डिपॉजिट क्रिएटेड होगा इन द एंटायर इकोनॉमी? दिस मच. So it's created by loan. Each time you get the loan, you deposit back to a commercial bank. it creates extra reserves and extra money. That's the intuition. Okay? That is why
Yes, sir.
that is why I've given this mathematics. Each time you deposit some amount of money, a loan created, loan gets deposited to the commercial bank again, extra deposit gets created, extra reserves get created, extra money gets created. The question is, if I if deposit rises by 100 unit, how much extra reserves in the banking system in the entire economy gets created? अगर मैं उसको कैलकुलेट कर पाऊं तो कितना मनी सप्लाई होगा क्रिएटेड, वो भी कैलकुलेटेड हो जाएगा, वो m equals to money multiplier multiplied by high powered money से. So that is why I calculate this. Delta D equals to delta R. उसको high powered money के फॉर्मूला में बिठा दिया, delta H is exactly equals to delta R. Then how much money? Delta M equals to mu into delta H, which is equals to mu into delta R. कितना मनी सप्लाई एक्स्ट्रा हुआ, मिल गया. फाइन. अक्षत शर्मा, है या नहीं है? आर्यन सिंह,
Yes, sir.
समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, सेकंड. अच्छा. Although I said my student will discuss this this ISLM in detail. तो यहाँ से at least the person, MSc economics person, the open market operation say anybody, let's say let me ask Aryansh over here. Aryansh, we have already seen that when central bank purchase bond from the commercial bank through open market operation, money supply rises. Can you tell me what happens to the interest rate of the economy?
Sir, can you please repeat? If the central bank?
If the central bank does this open market operation, they purchase bond from the commercial bank, we have already seen that it's going to increase money supply, right?
Yes, sir.
What is its impact on the interest rate?
Yes, sir, I'm thinking.
कैसे think करोगे?
Sorry,
What is the what is the tool we're going to use over here?
Sir, interest rate will fall.
कैसे कैसे कैसे?
Sir, inflation, there will be inflation
That
because
that'll be inflation. क्या बोल रहे हो?
inflation.
नहीं नहीं नहीं, कौन सा वाला टूल यूज करोगे तुम लोग?
Sir, IS curve.
IS curve and LM curve.
LM.
If money supply rises, which curve is going to be affected? IS or LM?
LM.
Okay, shifting up or shifting down?
So shifting up.
Shifting up. Money supply rises means LM curve shifting up. तुम कौन सा बुक से पढ़े हो भाई? हाँ?
Sir, no, sorry.
Shifting up or shifting down?
So, down. Yes.
Shifting up or shifting down? If money supply rises, what happens to LM curve? Shifting up or shifting down? ISLM draw to karo at least. You are measuring suppose y in the x-axis and r in the y-axis. R is the interest rate, y is the output. But IS downward slope है, sloping है या upward sloping? Sachi? I think she forgot. Sachi? Chachi Jalote.
So IS is downward sloping.
IS is downward sloping. Very good. तो साची जलोटे क्या हुआ है या नहीं है मुझे पता नहीं. LM upward sloping or downward sloping?
Sir, upward sloping.
Okay. Draw हो गया. Fine. Now the open market operation takes place. Central bank purchase bond from the commercial bank. Money supply rises. LM is going to be affected. Is going up or going down? Shifting up or shifting down? If money supply changes, money supply rises, LM कब? नवोनील बोल सकोगे? Basic
So,
macro.
hmm.
Shifting down there.
Shifting down, right? If LM curve shifts down, what happens to Y and R?
R
Sir,
falls, Y rises.
R falls and output rises.
Very good. And this is exactly what the implication of money supply rising. इतने दिन मैक्रो में तुम लोग क्या पढ़े हो? मनी सप्लाई इंक्रीज कर गया, LM डाउनवर्ड शिफ्ट हो गया, R फॉल कर गया, Y राइज कर गया. बट जो तुम लोग नहीं पढ़े हो, ये मनी सप्लाई इंक्रीज कैसे किया? So one of the tool of rising money supply is this open market operation. Open market operation से पहले decide कर लो whether money supply is going to rise or fall. Then you go back to your standard ISLM. Suppose you from the open market operation, central bank in this example, they purchase bond from the commercial bank and you have seen that money supply rising. Now you go back to your standard ISLM. Just check if money supply rises, what happens to my ISLM? My LM curve goes down. If my LM curve goes down, what happens to interest rate in the economy and output in the economy? Output rises, interest rate falls down. Standard. अच्छा, फिर से यहाँ से हम लोग कंटिन्यू करते हैं. What if my interest rate falls down, output rises? What happens to private investment, rising or falling? I. What happens to private investment? I, rising or falling? Money supply rises, LM shifts down, R has fallen down, Y increase. बोलो ना Vonil.
So it will rise, right?
It will rise because interest rate and private investment has a negative relation, right?
Yeah.
Very good. What happens to consumption?
So that should also rise.
क्यों?
Output increase होगा तो
Output has increased. Very good. That is also going to rise. So C rises. So देखो economy कैसे controlled हुआ? Just central bank purchase bond from the commercial bank. फटक से money supply increase कर गया. When the money supply rises, interest rate falls, output rises. Interest rate falls means extra investment. Output rises means extra employment. So this is open market operation. ये वाला जो example, central bank purchase bond from the commercial bank, it is called the expansionary monetary policy because it expands the economy. Y increase किया, I increase किया, employment increase कर गया. It's an expansionary monetary policy. Central bank purchase bond from the commercial bank is an expansionary monetary policy because it increases output, creates employment, and it increases private investment. समझ में आया? प्रियम शाह.
Yes, sir.
So expansionary monetary policy अगर बोला जाए, a reduction in nominal interest rate or in increase in money supply, both are called expansionary monetary policy. They are synonymously used. If somebody says reduction in the interest rate is an expansionary monetary policy or a contractionary monetary policy, it is an expansionary monetary policy because reduction in interest rate is always associated with rising money supply. Rise in interest rate is an expansionary monetary policy or contractionary monetary policy. Rise in interest rate is always a contractionary monetary policy because rising interest rate means always a reduction in money supply. They are synonymously used. ठीक है? नवोनील ठीक है?
हाँ सर.
ISLM थोड़ा सा ब्रश अप करो, नहीं तो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा. ब्रश अप फिर से होगा. My student will do it. I think he will need 2 or 3 classes for that, and I have to take some more classes to gather extra tutorial. So ये वाला हफ्ता अगर हो जाए तो मेरा 2 tutorial आ जाएगा. We can use that tutorial to brush up your ISLM a little bit. दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट का जो स्टूडेंट है अभी है यहाँ पे? Are you guys
Yes,
here?
sir.
Who's this?
Sir Samriddhi.
समृद्धि आई थिंक यू हैव ये वाला ISLM भूल जाओ, पर ये जो ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन और ये जो सेंट्रल बैंक कमर्शियल बैंक का बैलेंस शीट रिजर्व्स क्रिएशन सब मैं बोला, ये समझ में आया?
Yes, sir. Yes.
ओके, बट ISLM समझ में नहीं आया, राइट?
Sir, actually, I think we have studied, but like I didn't remember completely.
Oh my goodness. Then मैं what can I say? Nothing to say. अगर इतने जल्दी तुम लोग भूल जाते हो तो I don't know. अच्छा, and there is another guy, I think जियोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट का था, I think he is not here today. Anyway,
Yes, I'm here.
you are here, right? Who's this?
Yes, sir. Shriyam.
श्रीयम. श्रीयम, समझ में आया?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. So अदर जो दो टूल है मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी का इज बेसिकली चेंज इन रिक्वायर्ड रिजर्व्स, वो हम लोग पढ़ेंगे बिकॉज यू सी व्हेन द रिक्वायर्ड रिजर्व्स आर चेंजेस, your high powered money change, sorry, this money multiplier changes, and according the money supply will change. So it's clearly seen over here, if RR rises, AIM is going to fall. If RR falls, AIM is going to rise. So if central bank wants to do an expansionary monetary policy, that means they want to increase money supply, they will simply decrease RR. But इसका impact बैलेंस शीट में कैसे होता है वो हम लोग डिटेल स्टडी करेंगे. The way we have studied this open market operation and how the composition of the balance sheet changes, जो हम लोग किया वो हम लोग अभी RR के साथ भी करेंगे. So what will happen over here, अगर मैं यहाँ पे चले जाऊं, समृद्धि,
Yes, sir.
या समृद्धि, सपोज इनिशियली एक RR था, RR 0. नाउ सेंट्रल बैंक रिड्यूसेस दिस RR टू से RR 1. इमीडिएट इंपैक्ट क्या होगा?
Sir, the
Required
reserve
reserves
ratio.
falls down. Required reserves falls down. Immediate income, immediate impact यहाँ पे होगा in the asset side of the commercial bank. Reserves is going to rise or fall?
Decrease.
It reduces reserves, right?
Yes.
If this decreases reserves, हम लोग यहाँ पे balance बाद में करेंगे. The reduction in reserves that we see in the asset side of the commercial bank, it will get reflected in the liability side of the commercial bank also. The reserves will fall down.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes, sir.
So one balance बाद में करेंगे, फिर से मैं बोल रहा हूँ. One thing is pretty clear. If this reserves falls down, the high powered money is going to fall down and the money supply
We fall.
will fall down. That is absolutely clear. So if reserves, नहीं, reserves तो fall किया, required reserves तो fall किया, reserves increase करेगा कि decrease करेगा? Initially, suppose your required reserves was 0.5, now your required reserves is 0.2. Right? What is going to happen to reserves?
So it will fall.
It will fall down. यहाँ पे fall किया. This is fallen over here. This is fallen over here. Now, अभी तक यहाँ पे जो मैं देखा हूँ H तो fall किया. Now the question is, how do you balance over here? कैसे balance करेगा? Same amount of deposit, reserves has fallen down. क्या होगा? सेम अमाउंट ऑफ डिपॉजिट, सपोज इनिशियली हैव दिस 100 डिपॉजिट, वो चेंज नहीं हुआ. पहले it was 0.5, 50 units of reserves you want to keep. Now you are at 0.2. Only 20 units you are keeping. यहाँ पे 100 है, यहाँ पे 50 था, अभी 20 हो गया.
The loan would be increasing.
लोन विल इंक्रीज. अगर लोन इंक्रीज करे वो एक्स्ट्रा लोन कहाँ पे जाता है?
Deposit in another bank.
एंड इट विल कंटिन्यू इन दिस फैशन. अल्टीमेटली जो तुम देखोगे, ऑब्वियसली आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू शो दैट ओवर हियर, ये जो हाई पावर्ड मनी चेंज नहीं करेगा. सेंट्रल बैंक का एसेट साइज भी चेंज नहीं करेगा, लायबिलिटी साइड भी चेंज नहीं करेगा. द ओनली थिंग दैट विल चेंज ओवर हियर is basically keeping the same H with the same high powered money can be shown mathematically. जो वाला मेरा फॉर्मूला कहाँ गया? At same high powered money, since RR has fallen down, only the mu is going to increase and the money supply is going to increase. It can be shown mathematically that nothing will change in the high powered money. High powered money is not changing, means the liability side of the central bank is not changing. That means the asset side of the central bank is also not changing. Whatever is going to happen is over here. So this one, and this one will change accordingly. Reserves, deposit, loan, they will change accordingly so that nothing is going to change over here. It can be shown mathematically, and impact will be over here only. The RR is going to fall and the money supply is going to rise. We will see this intuition more in detail, more in graphically. Mathematics I'm not going to show over here, but we will see that in more in detail with this kind of graph, that what happens. We will see the same thing will happen, that high powered money is not going to change at all. The high powered money will remain absolutely unchanged if my required reserves changes. Only the money multiplier is going to change, and that's going to change my money supply. In this example, my RR has fallen down, and my RR has fallen down means my money multiplier will increase and the money supplies will increase. Now, again, if somebody asks you what is the impact of reduction in RR, impact is increase in the money supply. Again, the LM has fallen down, interest rate will fall, output will rise, the expansionary monetary policy. So reduction in required reserves is the expansionary monetary policy. It's going to increase money supply, it's going to decrease interest rate, and it's going to increase output and employment. So this is the first tool, open market operations. Second tool is required reserves. That is his impact. We will see last thing, discount rate we will study next day, tomorrow, and we will actually going to see graphically what will happen when the open market operation and required reserve. So this is basically the required reserve changes, and high powered money is not going to change. We will see that more in detail. So required reserves का वही है. If you want to see the how the composition of the balance sheet changes with the required reserves, actually nothing is going to change over here. Central bank balance sheet is not going to change over here. The reserves will change over here. According to the loan is going to change over here, and the deposit will change over here in such a way so that in the central bank balance sheet, ultimately nothing going to change. If the central bank balance sheet nothing going to change, asset liability side remain absolutely unchanged. So it basically is what will happen is basically high power money will remain unchanged, and the money supply will change only through money multiplier when the required reserve changes. Required reserves falls, money multiplier rises, money supply rises. Expansionary monetary policy impact go to ISLM, LM shifts down, R falls, Y rises. Extra employment created. Clear? So open market operation, one tool very frequently used. Required reserve change is another tool not very frequently used. We will explain that why this change in required reserves is not a very popular measure in controlling money supply. We will do that, but both are there. It changes money supply. If central bank wants to manipulate money supply, they can do open market operation, or they can do change required reserves accordingly. ठीक है, अमन, अमन खोईवाल.
यस सर.
ठीक है अमन,
हाँ सर, ठीक है.
समझ में आया? ये जो लिंक मैं अभी बोल रहा हूँ ये सबका समझ में आना चाहिए. जस्ट मनी सप्लाई चेंज हुआ, इफ अल्टीमेटली व्हाट इज द इम्पैक्ट इन द इकोनॉमी, तुम्हें आईएसएलएम में चला जाना पड़ेगा. Just determine from the monetary policy that if open market operation takes place or the required reserve changes, just from this analysis, just this composition of the balance sheet and this high powered money supply relationship, the only objective is you have to just calculate what is happening to money supply, rising or falling. Then once that gets determined, ISLM में चले जाओ. What is his impact on the economy? ठीक है नवोनील, ठीक है.
Yes, sir.
Very good. When is our next class? Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, right? In the afternoon, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. If there is no question, I'm going to end today's lecture over here. We will meet again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Okay? Chalo then. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much to
sir.
everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.